Want more positivity in your life? Subscribe, turn on notifications, follow us, and all that techie stuff. We'd love to hear from you. Comment, share, or give us a thumbs up. We are grateful to have you hanging out with us at Matt Logan Speaks.
I think that's where we miss it, though. We think we will, as a human being, we will have control.
Yeah.
And that's where we miss it. Mm-hmm. We don't have control.
You talk to the vets, they're like, dude, it's an unwinnable war. Literally, the terrain there is insane. There's no way to just stop the war on terror. We're actually causing more terror. We're pissing them off even more.
Yeah, so the thing for me is we talked off camera, about having discussions with people. If you look at the left and the right mm-hmm. and you talk to them and you don't make it political in any fashion, so you kind of just have conversation and you pay attention, you listen. Both sides want the same thing. And you're into that, as you word it, the light and the dark, mm-hmm. right? So the liberal ideas, let's even go this way with it. You talked about Jesus off camera. Mm-hmm. If you look at Jesus and the philosophy and what he taught, right, is that we need to love everybody and love our enemies and all those other things. And what did he not tolerate? He didn't tolerate self-righteousness, mm-hmm. right? That was the only thing that he didn't tolerate. He loved everybody else. They say, well, Jesus didn't know racism. He didn't? Oh, wow, really? Yeah, he did. Let's talk about the woman at the well. Yep. The woman at the well was completely blown away that he was talking to her because she was a different race and they didn't mix. You can go down this path forever mm-hmm. just with the way that he taught, and you take the spiritual side of it out. That's a really great way to live. Mm-hmm. Right? And so it's incredible for me when you see these two sides. They kind of want that same mm-hmm. thing. But what has happened is we've allowed that dark to come in mm-hmm. to both sides and really go out of whack with it and not tolerate this and not tolerate that. And when I say we tolerate too much evil, mm-hmm. too much dark, mm-hmm. both sides do. What do you say?
We were talking.
How do we? Well,
I mean, if we
how do both sides come together against that dark?
Find Jesus.
Yeah.
Find Jesus. And we were talking about it. And I grew up Catholic. I've swayed and I've gone my own spiritual paths down in the jungle. You know this. We've talked about this last time I was on Courage Over Comfort, I believe, or one of your shows. Yep. And we were talking, and I said, don't just believe in Jesus, be Jesus.
Yep.
And it was mainly because of people's responses after Trump got diagnosed with COVID-19. That was a test. Have you really been co-opted by darkness? Unfortunately, the majority have, because they immediately went into, I hope he dies. Mm-hmm. It's like, wait a minute.
Which were the same people that were saying that he couldn't hate on mm-hmm. anybody. Yep. Yeah.
So don't just vote for Joe Biden. Be Joe Biden. Sure. Take the higher ground. Take the higher road. Look at what Barack Obama and his wife just tweeted out. They were tweeting out sympathies and speedy recovery for the First Lady and President Trump. So, how are you going to immediately go into hoping this guy died? Dude, we're talking, even my mom was on this soapbox talking with my aunt who's a Trump supporter. Dude, it was ugly. And it's Mom, you've been so co-opted right now. It's very ugly to see, because I don't think people understand the war that's going on right now for your consciousness.
No, they absolutely
they have no clue. So until people really wake up to that, and we were talking about getting past the bubble of politics, getting up to, why are you really here? To connect with one another, mm-hmm. to love.
It's relationships.
Not just to be a reincarnation of a Buddha, to be a reincarnation of a Jesus. If you really want to, you can summon that in and be it.
Yeah.
Be that. Yeah. Let it radiate through you.
Your
actions, man. And people have lost it. So it's, how I've talked about how my life is like satire now, where I pretty much I can't take anyone seriously anymore. I'm unable. Obviously, my close homies and my partners, my employees, I take very seriously, my wife. But the thing is in the grand scheme of things, I have to laugh at everything, because I'm sitting back as this light warrior. You know what I'm saying? I work with these teachers, and I just sit back and I just smile, because it's oh boy, y'all are too invested in politics right now, because you're just a little puppet. You're a little sheep. and I feel bad for you because you've been co-opted by darkness because this or this gets under your skin.
And being co-opted by that darkness, I think I want to circle right back to the masks and everything. When this first started, I talked to some friends of mine, and I said, "This is an exercise, right? This is an exercise to see who's going to do what and fall in line." And I said, we're going to watch this thing unfold. I said, it's not going to be a 2-week thing. I knew that right away. It's not going to be 2 weeks. I mean, come on. They're going to grab this power, and look at our own governor. 7 consecutive months, I believe it is, of executive power that he's taken a hold of. Woo.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I love it. I don't love the power grab or anything. I love the mass. Can I tell you why?
Yeah.
Because it gets overwhelming to always have to be on stage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And to just kind of like get in my zone. I've been to Menards because I've done so many projects. I'm gutting my house right now. About to be finished with the bathroom today, kitchen this weekend, or this week. And I've had to go to Menards easily in the last 7 months. Built a deck too, 100 times.
Yeah.
Okay. And each one of those trips is having to be on stage, typically having to be on stage, not to mention the Home Depot trips, the Target trips go down the list. And I like it because I can be in my zone. But the thing is I understand why we shouldn't be allowing this because, let's be honest, dude, it's a control grab like we talk about. And now it's, like you said, to keep people like, are you going to be in line? Are you going to play ball with us? Or are we going to have to delete you off YouTube? Or we're going to have to block you on Facebook. I've seen more people get blocked for a month, 2 months, 60-day jail sentences on Facebook. Dude, the other day, I tried to post on my buddy's thing, go look at www.antifa.com. Joe Biden bought it. It goes right to Joe Biden.
Yeah.
I can't even post that, but it goes to Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So Facebook won't let me post www.antifa.com, but it goes right to Joe Biden. So, like, even Facebook's tripping over itself right now. They don't know what to do with the algorithm.
Yeah.
And Twitter's about to open up a Wild West version, which is going to be hilarious because, watch, we might see people transition back over to that.
Do you think that'll happen, though?
Well, it's already existed. It's just they might almost brand it that way where if you want to get dark, you can go over here and just play ball like a Reddit thread. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. But at the same time, Matt, like I said, I'm just sitting back watching, abiding, because I have friends. Shoot, one of my big accounts, he owns Powers Ventures, right? So like, and that's my guy. He's a mentor of mine. Like, I love him to death. And I grew up in the restaurant industry. My stepdad still owns a restaurant. So it's like if they want to, they have to abide to stay in business. So like, I'm over here on both sides of the spectrum. We all know it's BS, but at the same time, we got to play ball. At the same time, we know it's still a disease that's, kind of running rampant on people and affecting some more than others. But why isn't science talking about how we need to be pumping everybody full of vitamin D, zinc, magnesium, go down the list, dude? Like, that's what's been baffling me is why aren't these scientists actually telling people to be proactive about this?
There are scientists that are talking about being proactive about it, but guess what? They're the ones that are being blocked on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and all these other places when they're talking about what's true because it doesn't go with the narrative of what I would even go as far to say now with what the way you put it, the dark side of it.
Sounds like communism.
It's an awful lot like it. That's laying it out there.
So we have, because the internet used to be the Wild West, right?
Yeah.
It used to be the Wild West. Like, everything was out there. And then now it's just like communist dictatorship ran by Google in a nutshell because they own YouTube. So, I mean, hate to say it, but that's what it is.
I think that the hard part for me is that when you have a Facebook that will block a narrative that they don't agree with, which is one.
They're getting forced into it because they keep getting pulled in front of Congress. Why are you allowing misinformation? Well, wait a minute. Mark Zuckerberg, literally, I feel bad for the guy because he's had to explain multiple times, wait a minute, we're just allowing information to get passed. So it's up to the consumer to dictate whether that's right or wrong. If you are asking us or forcing us to start controlling this, just so you know you're going down a slippery slope.
Well, let's call it what it is because there's been things about that have from Joe Biden's camp, we'll call it, that have been extremely inaccurate, and they don't fact check that.
Yep.
That's the truth.
Oh yeah, they're definitely biased.
And that's where I have a hard time. They talk about. I'm not sure. That's a tough one. They're a private business, right? And for me, I guess I think as a business owner for most of my life, in some fashion or another, I think it's up to the business owner to say, okay, look, I know that this isn't really great. This could harm. So I'm going to tell you about it, and here's how you can prevent it, right?
That was Mark Zuckerberg's literal quote was, we have to trust these businesses to make the right decision.
Yeah.
And we can't control them to do so. But now government is basically forcing Facebook to step in and monitor everything. So like, bro, because I've watched the proceedings. I feel so bad for like the Google CEO being thrust in front of they're being forced by Congress to basically babysit, and it's a big control grab by Congress, all because of the Russia thing with the bots. Okay, we could have just nipped it right there.
Yeah,
we could have just said, okay, Russia was doing paid ads and they were causing a lot of disgruntled parties on both sides because of misinformation. Why don't we control that? Now we're controlling the American people. Ooh.
In the misinformation, though, the problem is it's not just a social media thing. It's a media thing. CNN has misinformation. Fox News has misinformation. It depends upon the confirmation bias that they're selling to.
Have you seen the recent reasoning? What they've done with Tucker Carlson? They basically labeled him as parody.
Really?
So he could slide through. Does that make sense?
Wow.
So
who labeled him that way?
Fox News did.
Okay.
So his own boss, they
Yeah.
labeled it as parody to slide through. Alex Jones did the same thing when he was for custody of his kids. He labeled it as parody to a workaround, basically.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
that just came out with Tucker Carlson and Fox News. So you see what news is doing. They're basically telling
Don't
Congress,
call it news.
Yeah.
It's not news.
And
it's media.
That's what they're doing, though, is
Yeah.
they're basically like saying, oh, no, we're not news. People might
Yeah.
take us as news, but
Yeah.
we're not news.
Yeah.
And it's just like this workaround. It's this insane workaround where it's like, why aren't we holding like a deeper accountability to the Tucker Carlsons of the world, or Nancy Grace's back in the day, where it was all
or Cooper.
Anderson Cooper, dude. He's a Vanderbilt, bro.
You
Can't
know,
trust that guy.
no.
I love him, though. I love him.
But I mean, how many times has he come out? Has it been proven and shown? I mean, there's been photoshopped photos.
Him standing in a puddle.
There's that one too, right? He's standing. He's like kneeling in the puddle, making it look like
there's
this
kids eating
huge
Doritos on the
right?
side. Like, what's this guy doing?
Exactly.
Like, we're good.
Right. It's there's a lot of those things. So I'm not saying it's one side or the other. It's
both sides.
It's all part of your confirmation bias, which is what happens is that they're trying to. Someone asked me after a speech that I did, she said, you completely changed the way I think about this. Is that your intention, to change the way people think about this situation? And I said, absolutely not. What I want to do, I don't want to influence people or whatever. I want to provoke their thoughts, right? I want to open them up to think. I'm not going to tell them what to think or anything like that. And that's so important that we as individuals take that responsibility and open up and think. There's a lot of, we talked about Jonathan Haidt off camera, and I don't agree with most of the things that he discusses, but he also has a lot of things that are really good.
He wrote The Happiness Hypothesis, right?
I think he did. I haven't read that one.
That was the one I did read where I found out about him and stuff. That was the one I was trying to think of off camera.
Yeah.
Happiness Hypothesis.
And so, I've read most of The Righteous Mind, and I've read all of Coddling of the American Mind, which it really, really opened up my mind to even the leftist view, because we talked about Brett Weinstein, who was in the middle of all kinds of a mess. Evergreen, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the cancel culture was canceling what they were actually trying to stand up for and everything. And so when it gets off into that kind of place and tangent, we need to have people like Jonathan Haidt that are in, your words, that camp, right? In that camp, and they need to come out and be more proactive and say what is happening here and what happened at Evergreen is evil. It's dark.
It is the snake eating its own tail. That's literally what it is.
Yeah.
And Jordan Peterson talked about this, where he wouldn't conform to people with all these non-binary terms, and it started having to do with like rentals in Canada where he lived, where like it was basically, he's like, there's no room for this. This is anti-science. So once we start swaying off the science path, well, science is always trying to prove itself wrong. So like, if you can't even prove this scientifically, well, then we have an issue, because now you're trying to thrust that upon me when it hasn't been scientifically proven.
Yeah.
Get there first, and then we can talk. If we're going to start putting this on applications and things like that, and where kids aren't going to be considered for housing because of this, well, I have an issue with that. So as a leader, he speaks up, voices his opinion. Same thing with like what Jonathan Haidt and the Weinsteins have done. One of the Weinstein brothers, they're getting trampled on when I'm actually on your team. I'm literally with Weinstein, too. He was on the team with the students, and then they're still trying to run him out. So you have these kids who have not experienced what real life is all about.
Yep.
They've been in this facade. I already have stated this multiple times on my own show, how I feel bad for kids who were born into the internet because they never had to experience scraping their knees and getting their hands dirty.
Yep.
Let's just call it what it is. They weren't out actively building tree forts, spraining their ankles, and getting back up.
Yep.
They weren't doing it. I'm sorry. I've seen it firsthand.
And that's safetyism, right? And to me, what I am attempting to do is I am attempting to build strong, right? In fact, the back of my shirt, shiny, it's the first word is strong.
I love that,
right?
by the way.
Thank you. And it's an acronym that I teach off of. And so that's the whole thing is that for so long with the Generation Z or iGen that you're talking about, they have taught safetyism. And we're not safe. We're never going to be safe.
All the while, we've never been safer as a society.
Exactly. And that's about what I was going to say. Statistically speaking, no matter what you do and where you go, whether it be medical, whether it be driving down the road, whether it be in your house, it's never been safer, ever. And they're still trying to say that we need to be safer, need to be safer. No, we're pretty dang safe. Let's be strong. Let's build strong. And I've said this before. Each one of my kids would probably call me an asshole. But they'd also probably say that, you know what, thank you for being an asshole when you needed to be, because that built us strong. I have a daughter that lives on her own down in South Carolina. She's 22 years old. You know, I'm okay with that. Why? Because I know her. I was hard on her to build her to be strong.
We've allowed people to just create the boogeyman. So nowadays, you talk about media, right? And I wanted to talk about kind of like what's really going on behind media with these big-time meetings, Bilderberg meetings, annual Bilderberg meetings, why are all the news agencies invited to this weekend and no cameras are allowed? And why are they also meeting with the most powerful players on the planet and the corporate entities that are running the show? Why is that? If you look at the oil companies that fund like Fox News and stuff, it's just absolutely insane how in bed these people are. They're all playing on the same team. They know what they're doing divisively. Now we talk about, let's break it down a little bit more micro. So that's macro, right? That's the big umbrella. Micro, when you have this divisiveness, you have a lot of people creating pulling boogeyman out of thin air, to the point my 2-year-old daughter, her first real receptive year of trick-or-treating, she technically can't go. She's being shunned. The boogeyman is being created. Oh my gosh, there might be COVID-19 on that Reese's Pieces. Shut up and give my daughter and her strong immune system that damn Reese's Pieces.
And that's the best thing that kids can do is they can...
I'm a little intense, Shannon. I'm a little intense.
Our camera operator is not falling asleep on this one.
I just want you to know, I love it. It's all love.
Exactly. And so that's the best thing that they can do is they can be out and get exposed to those things, right? Now, you probably don't want to bring your great-grandparents out trick-or-treating this year. That makes sense. We have that science now that shows the people who are most vulnerable are over their, 75 or whatever that number was. So that makes sense, right? But not a your 2-year-old. I mean, come on.
Yeah, let these kids, I thought immediately these kids should not be getting pulled out of school. Now, we should have taken different necessary precautions to protect grandma and grandpa and older parents and stuff like that. Don't pull the kids out of school. Figure that out, because we figured out how to have an NBA season, NFL kicked off. We figured all that out with big time conglomerates. We could have figured that out with our school systems as well. They're already inside a bubble every single day because you're protecting our kids. Figure it out.
Yep.
And that's something they didn't do. They should have pulled them out for maybe a month and then figured it out and allowed these kids to maybe go a little deeper into summer and finish off their school year. Because what I'm a coach, right? And I know you work with youth as well. And talking with my younger siblings, my nieces and nephews, they felt like their soul was ripped out by not being able to be around their friends.
The mental health crisis that it's created in this short of a time is absolutely nothing compared to what I think the mental health crisis is going to be in another year or two, especially if we keep things locked down like they are.
Man, if your teacher was in a hazmat suit with a mask on and then a mask underneath that mask and then probably a couple nasal masks and go down the list, right? Earplugs, they were blocking every crevice, right? So that would scar me more than possibly getting a gnarly cold.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That would scar me more.
But now the teachers are going to hear this and they're going to say that, well, you don't care about the teachers.
You don't care about me. Oh. Well, guess what? I'm sorry, but I've worked with teachers and we have actually worked workarounds so they can actually bring art into their school safely. And so, I don't want to hear it because I'm still working for you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's not get it twisted. And the teachers, they're also dealing with a boogeyman. So it's okay, you need to step back, pros versus cons. Okay, you're a 28-year-old teacher who needs your damn job. If you don't want to be a teacher and you don't want to be at risk, because guess what? You get the flu every year from one of your kids. So, let's not get it twisted, okay? Buck up. This is your career path. Same thing with nurses. This is your career path. You signed up for this. You knew pandemics exist. You had to know every year of every pandemic since Kingdom Come just to get through college.
Yep.
So you knew the risks. Same thing with police officers. God rest some of their souls who have passed away, but they know the risks when they put on that badge.
They know the risk, but that's not what they sign up for. They don't sign up to be hated. They don't sign up to
I'm just
not
saying
go home
fighting
at
the
night.
boogeyman. That is their job.
Yeah, and they should be allowed to do that job too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a lot of things in there, and I work with those officers all the time. You know the stuff that I do. Maybe that's how I should have introduced you, how we know each other.
You kind of look like you could be a cop or a probation officer.
I never would be, but thanks. But no, the thing is, with that, they don't sign up to be hated. They don't sign up to just be sitting in their car and being shot for no reason. It's just there's bad versions of me, there's bad versions of you, just like the police officers that way, doctors. I mean, statistically speaking, clergy are much, much worse and do worse things than police officers do and things like that. So that's kind of a thing that I would probably fight you on a little bit.
Well, no.
In the sense of I don't mean fight in the sense, but I would say here's where my flag is planted, right? And do that. But I agree.
When you're an evil fighter, okay, so when you're an evil fighter, so you're supposed to be a superhero. That's how we should be perceiving police, because they go in, kind of like firefighters. They go into the fire instead of running away from it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it's like throwing this bullseye on your back with the evildoers in the community. That's the shitty part, is a cop who is off duty and who is not wearing a badge, isn't in his patrol car. It's almost like that cloak goes away with the boogeyman that exists in the streets. And then when they throw on that badge, there's a bullseye on them. And that is the shitty part, the shitty reality of what we're dealing with right now. Kind of like one of our armed forces members who is wearing their platoon's insignia, and they're in Afghanistan and they get bombarded. If they weren't there at that time, they wouldn't be bombarded. But unfortunately, in my eyes, they're doing God's work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They are the evil fighters.
Yeah.
And in today's society, so many things, even precincts have been co-opted. A lot of them down in the South, where they're still flying some flags that aren't allowed anymore, and that's a reality as well. But the thing is, that just shows the fight we're in, like clergy members. Different from police officers, when they put on that white cape, right? They're supposed to only be doing good, but evil has co-opted, and that's what we're seeing. Unfortunately, in the streets, the evil has just been allowed to run rampant. You're not held to a standard like a police officer where, no, you're fighting the evil.
Yeah.
Evil can't be in your heart.
Yeah.
And that's the shitty part about all this.
And what also is the shitty part about it is that so many people aren't calling evil, right?
Yeah.
You know, they're defending the evil now, and it's instead of the good. And what I mean by that is you know, there's been a lot of videos that have come out and that get brushed aside, and they only show the little pieces that they want to show that goes along with the narrative, right?
I tell you what, that was a big thing with the George Floyd, the footage off of the officer's camera.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, where he was like complaining about not being able to breathe and stuff like that, well before he was put on the ground or anything. Beyond what happened with the officer having his knee on him for however long, like he was like, it was just insane to me to like see the back end where it's like, oh my gosh, you could have done so. Obviously, they had to do their due diligence with the courts before they could release the footage.
Yeah,
but you could have possibly prevented so much if you just released it right away.
I still think that's a control grab. Back to that.
Yeah.
But
they could have possibly prevented, because I have friends. My boy Yumwin, his family's business got raided twice, and the second time got completely demolished after that dude killed himself a few weeks ago, in Minneapolis. What happened? It just spurted up immediately because misinformation comes out right away, and it just sucks. So, like, one thing, do you remember the Michael Brown shooting was that down in Missouri?
Yeah, Ferguson.
It sparked Ferguson, and then the story comes out where like, no, dude, Michael Brown like was rushing at this cop and stuff like that, and it's like, you have Michael Brown who dude looked like he could have played linebacker.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
He's a big boy, and like me as a cop, dude, I'm 190-pound cop. Like, I ain't gonna be able to stand a chance. And if I'm getting bum rushed, who knows, dude? I could not put myself in the position of a police officer. That's the reason I'm not a police officer.
Yeah.
I don't want to face trauma every single day.
Yeah.
I'm too soft for that, you know? And when that story comes out, where it finally comes out, like, oh no, he was kind of like Michael Brown, God rest his soul, like he made some decisions that day. He didn't have to do that at the gas station. He didn't have to go after that police officer. He didn't deserve to lose his life, but we also have to put ourselves in the position of the police officer.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm afraid people don't consider when they immediately go into these hashtag modes where it's like, you guys, like, please consider, because I work with people who face trauma. And it's like, please consider these people who have to go through trauma every single day just to do a job.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what you're not considering right now. Yes, we know that certain sects have been shortchanged. We know that, and we're working towards that, and we're working towards making it better. The relationship between Baltimore police has to get better out east, But that same system too that they are complaining about is the very system that has made it as free as it is, and it has given the most opportunities that anything ever has in history, in freaking history. So you can't tear down a system like that. You can say, okay, there's some issues with it, absolutely. But tearing it down doesn't make any sense, because that's the very system that got you free. It got you and I free, right? I mean, everybody that lives in the United States. It's the snake eating its tail again, and its perspective. So when you think of what these people did and what the mayor of Seattle allowed
until they came to her residence. Then she shut it down.
That's insane.
They came and protested and were rioting essentially at her residence, and then it got shut down.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, only until then.
I cannot be trusted to control an entire society. I don't want to. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
exactly.
I'm the type of
That's
person-
why our system is set up how it
Yes.
is. It's supposed to be.
So you have these people who have never even taken a political science class, and they all of a sudden want to start putting fences up and create their own neighborhood inside
Yeah.
Seattle. And it's like, you guys, you don't have the infrastructure to be able to do that. Like, this economy actually works pretty good.
Yeah,
And it
for
actually
sure.
keeps you pretty safe, like we talked about. And these places in cities where it's like certain parts of LA, certain parts of Chicago, Detroit, cops, they're not answering calls over there because they're worried for their life.
Yep.
They're looking
They
at
have
it
kids.
like
They have a wife.
kids. They're like, you know what? It's not even worth it. I'm just going to let these cats, since they think they can run the show, since
Mm-hmm.
they think they can police themselves, I'm just going to let them have at it. And unfortunately, it's not all funding. A lot of it is like literal safety issues where
Yeah.
it's like, no, I'm not going to go police over there because no, I don't want to get shot at.
Absolutely.
You know, so like that's the dark side of a movement that they don't consider. They don't look at it like, well, you also have to police your own in regards to like hold each other accountable, hug your kids. It says hug your kids on the back of my shirt.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, but like if you don't hug your kids, you might thug your kids.
Right.
And that's not a race thing.
No, exactly, yeah.
It's like literal.
Yeah.
I know just as many outlandish honkies as I do my black brothers.
Yep.
I grew up in a black household. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? Like literal, my stepdad hugged my siblings, and guess what? They're good kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like when you're not raising your kids, they might end up with a pistol in their back pocket when they're 12.
Yeah.
If you don't raise your kids.
Yeah.
And I see that coaching minorities where it's like I work with the mothers and fathers who are unable to get their kids to practice. I fill a void.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, mama's working, so then I go pick up Julius. That's what I do. And we'll grab you some grub afterwards or before or whatever, just because I got to fill in a void where it might be missing in your household. So I have to do that part. Mentors as well. It's up to our mentors to step up and help out. But parentals need to ask for help. It's very important.
Yeah, that's a hard pill to swallow as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it? You're a parent, and it's hard to ask for that help. It's hard to admit that it's needed and things like that. But, man, I think we've been grinding for like an hour.
I love it.
Let's do this again.
We could have gone forever.
We could. Absolutely.
Because there's so many stones that haven't been turned over. But I think one point I really want to end this on is don't just believe in Jesus if that's your choice. Be Jesus.
Yeah.
Don't just vote for who you're going to vote for. Take on their positive characteristics. We've seen this on the other side where a lot of people thought that since Trump won that they can act a certain way. A piece of humanity got sucked out of them.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
And same thing, if you're going to vote for, say, even a Jo Jorgensen, take on her positive characteristics. That's why a lot of people liked Barack Obama, is because of his diplomacy, how he diplomatically conducted himself.
Sure.
And that's something where if you're going to vote for Joe Biden in these trying times to get rid of the orangutan, take on his positive characteristics. I really liked, you lost your daughter, right? And he's lost a child as well. And how he defended his son who has had cocaine or drug issues was very noble. How he looked in the camera and he said, while Trump is talking smack about his son who has faced these issues, he's backing him up through thick and thin. And I think that's probably the most powerful thing we can do for our kids is actually just take on their problems and help them solve them and have their back 1,000,000,000%.
Yeah. Where can we find you?
Everywhere. Look up Stationary Astronaut. You'll find us eventually. Go down the wormhole if Mark Zuckerberg allows it. But yeah, follow us on Instagram. Also check us out on Facebook.
Cool. Thanks for being here, dude.
All right, brother.